The Indian man's idea of sexual attraction is that only men can feel sexual attraction, while women only submit to sex. Traditionally, the Indian woman's absence from public spaces not only creates an awkward relationship between her and the man, but also further complicates the relationship that men share with each other. You may have noticed that Indian men aren't averse to being touched by each other, as is prevalent in many other cultures. A great example is this photo story by Vincent Dolman about what he believes is a delightfully strange phenomenon of Indian men unromantically holding hands in public. The Indian man's messed up heterosexual private life gives rise not just to a positive sensitized relationship with other men, it also gives rise to a perverse confusion between lust and aggression towards those men who he considers less manly. Let's back up a little bit. India has always shared a complicated relationship with the LGBTQ. We all know about the portrayal of homosexuality in Khajuraho and the acceptance of the identity of trans people in mythology through characters like Shikhandi, a trans man, and Brihannala, a trans woman. There's also the concept of the Ardhnarishwar, the all-powerful half-man, half-woman form of Shiva and Shakti combined. Trans women have lived among us openly since as long as we can remember. Indians aren't unfamiliar with the idea that a person may not be comfortable with their biological gender identity. But sexuality is a whole different matter. Indians believe that trans women are just men dressed like women, and trans men are just women who want to be more like men. But we haven't come to terms with the fact that a person's sexuality may be independent of their gender identity. This all changed in 2008 with this film. Even though Dostana was not actually about gay men, it paved the way for a more comfortable portrayal of homosexuality in mainstream cinema. Before this, gay or effeminate men were portrayed as fringe elements or comic relief in most films. Not to mention, they were stereotyped as comical, effeminate men who could be pushed around as required. But Dostana gave us two kinds of gay men. One who could be sensitive, fashionable, and feminine, and another who was just a regular guy who prefers men over women. The reason the public was comfortable watching this film was because this was portrayed as an act and nothing else. Moving on, the Marathi film Natarang came out in 2009. This film was about a man who has to transform himself physically and behaviorally to become an effeminate comic relief character in rural Marathi plays. This film was where the line between effeminate, possibly gay men and trans women was blurred, true to Indian sensibilities. Guna, the protagonist, is referred to as Maushi or aunt in these plays. He is usually the female lead's companion. This trope is similar to the whole gay best friend trope that is popular in Hollywood. This film again is not about an actual feminine or gay man, but it correctly portrays the injustice and sexual abuse faced by gay men, or men who are considered unmanly. This portrayal bolsters the fact that sexual assault of any nature doesn't stem from lust, it stems from aggression. This same aggression leads heterosexual men to assault other men to help them feel more manly. The same trope came back in the Rohit Shetty film Bol Bachchan, where Abhishek Bachchan again played the role of a man pretending to be his own gay twin brother. Notice the interactions that this character has with men in this scene, where he is asked to dance to prove his prowess as a dance teacher. If this was an item song by a woman, this would be an unnecessarily sexual spectacle. But this scene is played as a comic relief yet again. The audience is comfortable laughing at the sexual nature of this sequence, but it nonetheless wants to see this sexuality. We are gratified seeing this, but we are afraid to consider it seriously. According to Freudian theory, all human beings are inherently bisexual and only have a certain sexual orientation which is dominant in them. That means that if heterosexual individuals get some kind of pleasure from watching any perverted representation of homosexuality on screen, it stems from our own unconscious desires. Coming back to these characters, you'll find that an effeminate gay man is often portrayed as being feisty and full of sexual aggression. I think this is a chauvinist's projection of strong feminine forces that they have experienced in real life. What I mean by this is that these bold, effeminate men fulfill the void created by the lack of strong female characters in these movies. This is not a conscious choice of the filmmaker. These characters have been crafted from the audience's messed up opinions of trans people and not real homosexual men. But everything isn't bleak for queer men in Indian cinema. Films like Bombay Talkies, I Am, and Aligarh brought the gay man to the foreground with a great amount of sensitivity. Not to mention, Fawad Khan in Kapoor and Sons, who was able to bring a real life perspective to the struggles of being in the closet into the mainstream. The future looks hopeful for queer men in Indian cinema. As for lesbians, we still have a long way to go before the Indian mainstream even accepts that they exist.